We will match your capacity to endure suffering. Without a capacity to endure suffering, we will meet your physical force with soul force. We will not hate you, and yet we cannot in our good conscience obey your evil laws. Do to us what you will. Threaten our children, and we will still love you. Come into our homes at the midnight hours of night and take us out onto a desolate highway and beat us and leave us there.
Red, white, and blues. This murder on Orange Avenue. Red, white, and blue. It's murder on Orange Avenue. Oh, mothers and fathers, sisters, brothers, loved ones. Oh, now their lives are through. Hatred got a rifle, aimed at the heart of this land. Hatred got a rifle, aimed at the heart of this land. Hatred in our hearts. Blood stains on our hands. violence in this land. Oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Don't know what I'm gonna do.
Is that?
Obviously, the anger, the hostility, the bitterness,
Look into the darkness, it looks back. Best high in the hood since cook crack. See, that's what I'm good at.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This is the Sunday Supper with Marquez, episode 7. Before we get started, I do want to shout out today's sponsor, Maccabees Deli, which is located at 1150 Polk Boulevard, Des Moines, Iowa. Y'all go check them out. I went by there the other day. Tasty. So go ahead and check that out. Someone told me I'm horrible at introducing people. Yeah, see how I'm trying to keep it today. Someone told me I'm horrible at introducing people, so today I'm gonna let my guests introduce themselves, starting with the left.
All right, I'm Dewana Bradley. I am the Executive Director of the Des Moines Urban Experience, which puts on Iowa Juneteenth. I am the owner of Iowa Urban Media, which produces the Urban Experience magazine, along with some other partnerships. And then I'm on the school board for Des Moines Public Schools.
Yeah. I am Justin Lewis, Des Moines activist, business owner of Lewis Lawn and Labor, and recently formed Des Moines Selma.
And I am Rob Johnson. I hold a bunch of titles, but most of all, I'll just say community activist is one, president of Iowa Juneteenth, and just a friend. So
dope. Thank y'all all for coming. So whoever, I'm not gonna put you out there, but leave me alone now. All right. So on a more solemn note, recently we lost John Lewis, as well as another leader in the movement.
C.T. Vivian.
C.T. Vivian.
Yeah.
That's right. Just what are y'all's thoughts on that? And we did have someone special to join us today, but just wanted to catch y'all's thoughts and feelings on that, just to dedicate this episode to that before we jump into our today's issues. Just how do y'all feel about that?
So I took a lot of notes because one thing I know that you know of people, but you don't really know about them till you really dig a little deeper into learning, who they were about. And I really looking at John Lewis, he started really young, so I look at the similarities between what's going on now and what went on back then, and it really goes hand in hand with each other. And just at the age of 19 or 20, somewhere in there, he was one of the 6 top individuals in the civil rights movement. And I just thought that was really powerful because we've got young people doing things today, and I know everyone's saying all kinds of things, but to me, young people now have that same energy that he had back then. He suffered for what he believed in. The police beat him, and so it was so fitting today watching them carry him over the bridge that he went over. And so for me, I hope it's an empowering thing for young people to see, how he spoke up for who we are as a people, passionate about voting, passionate about just making sure that we love and respect one another and that things get better. And so there's a bunch of quotes I wrote down that I kind of resonated with, you know, just for what he said. And if I can share one real quick, I'll do that, and then I'll let everybody else speak. But this is one quote that he wrote, and it just said, "Freedom is not a state, it's an act. It's not the same enacted garden perched high on the distant plateau where we can finally sit down and rest. Freedom is the continuous action we must all take, and each generation must do its part to create an even more fair, more just society." And that came from his book, Across the Bridge, A Vision for Change and Future of America.
Wow.
It's just one thing that resonated with me, and just learning a little more about him.
Thank you.
So what resonates with me with John Lewis is, mainly the age that he started this push for civil rights. And I mean, he's in his mid-20s, and he's just really doing what we are seeing people doing or now, you know, when we talk about protesting, show up in the halls of power, you know, doing, you know, activist things of good trouble, being arrested, and, you know, not flipping, because like when society looks at being arrested as a negative connotation, well, in that movement, you were going to get arrested. So they flipped it on its head, and they were like, if you don't get arrested, you're not doing enough. Yeah. So, and not just that, and I want to speak on, like, it was a nonviolent movement, so they were willing to be hosed down, bitten by dogs, and still turn the other cheek to get their rights. So, I don't know, it was just a big reflection these last few weeks, and just like learning, reading, diving into who he was as a man, the March on Selma, how like they were willing to be hurt. They were willing and ready to be brutalized. Their mentally was prepared for that. Yeah. And like, I was just telling myself, how can I get myself in that mindset, in that space to be able to keep my peace while still facing injustices right there, now. So,
you know what? I want to share a story. So it was about Caleb. Well, this is the point where I would turn to Caleb and say, "What day was it?" But
it's Tuesday.
But we were on a Zoom call. It was myself, Congressman John Lewis, Dr. Amos C. Brown, and Dr. Otis Moss Jr. And the first 10 minutes of the Zoom call, I was spent trying to help them figure out how to unmute themselves, right? And I kept saying, press the microphone in the corner, right? And so finally, when we got all squared away, they started talking, and I found myself in this position where I was like, this call is moving real slow. We got stuff to do. I got other calls. Kayla got me booked. I got stuff to do, and then I had to check myself. I had to check myself because a moment with these three gentlemen is a moment that nobody can replicate. It was so much when I stopped worrying about what was coming up next, and I started listening to what they were talking about and what they were saying. It got to the point to where I was asking. Basically, it turned into like an interview, and I was asking them, like, what do y'all do? What would you have done here, or what would you have done there? And so I didn't get the chance to really spend a lot of time. That was my first and last time meeting Congressman John Lewis via Zoom. But I have had the opportunity to be mentor and have multiple conversations with Dr. Amos C. Brown. And now my team knows that when Dr. Brown calls, I'm handing, if I can't take it, somebody around gonna answer that phone. Because you never know when the last time these legends are gonna have this conversation with you, right? And I found myself almost in tears the other day in the car because Dr. Brown called me after I had checked on him, because you know him and Congressman Lewis were like this. They were on that bus together from Atlanta, from Atlanta, Georgia to Jackson, right? Yeah. They were on that bus together. And so when Dr. Brown called me, I was like, everybody stop. I'm gonna take this moment right now because I know that was his friend, right? And I felt so honored, so privileged. Like, it was a feeling that came over me that I can't even describe, that he would call me, and Kayla and some other friends was in the car, and he literally just gave us a history lesson. Yeah. Like it was like a random phone call. He just called me and he was like, Johnson, and he just started talking, like, you know, and that's how they are.
That's that energy.
And if you just take a moment, we're sitting in this studio, in this place, because of the work they did.
Yeah.
Man,
absolutely. And you know, I'm happy that you all said those things. It's an interesting thing, even in watching with John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, where it's like, it's exactly what you all said. The eerie nature of how similar it was to ours is nuts. I also had the opportunity to talk to Wayne Ford about this exact same issue, just to get some of his insights, a legend in this region. John, if you wanted to, let's go ahead and play that segment now so everyone could see what Wayne Ford thought about that. All right. Thank y'all for tuning in. We are back with another segment here on Sunday Supper. My name is Marquez. We are joined today with a super special guest, someone that I'm incredibly honored to have on, Wayne Ford, legend of just the titles go on, the accolades go on and on. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure being here. I've been following you. I don't miss nothing, and I've been hearing about you, and I've been following you, so I'm glad to get a chance that me and you can hook up.
Absolutely. I'm so honored. So I guess I'll kick it off with, recently with the passings of John Lewis and others from within the movement, I wanted to reach out specifically to you. You're someone, especially in this community, that has been a point for that energy for a long time, and just to share your thoughts and the importance of those figures and just to share your thoughts in general.
Well, thank you. I've been very blessed to meet many icons in the state of Iowa. I've been here since 1972. I came here to play football. Many of my black friends left, but I decided to stay. It was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I played football at Drake University, and then I came out in 1974, and I dedicated my life to making sure young people can have a chance to fulfill the American dream. In that journey, I've met so many people because politically, Iowa is the Iowa caucus. So I met John Lewis because, he was a U.S. legislator. Wow. So I met him because he was a friend of Leonard Boswell. Representative Leonard Boswell was an Iowa state legislator, a House of Representatives, and him and John was real close. So he came here many times to be part of shows that we did, to do things for fundraisers for Leonard Boswell. And he also came here to do a big celebration. Sisters on Target had a big celebration, and they gave him an award. So he felt like family. Wow. That's number one. So I got a chance to see, touch. Here in Des Moines, Iowa, from the governor on down to the Dobatic, to be the candidate with you. One thing I like about, this compared to my hometown of D.C., you can see these people on TV and never touch them, and they right down the street. In Des Moines, Iowa, icons come through off and on. Jim Brown, Bill Russell, John Lewis. I can go on and on and on of the people I have met in the last 50 years, and you find out that they're just regular people. When I met Bill Russell, I said, man, how much is because he kept wearing this jacket. Every time you saw Bill Russell, he had this members-only jacket on. Yeah. So I had to ask him a question. I put him to the side and say, do you really like members-only jacket, or you just doing it because they paying you? He bust out laughing. Bill had that crazy laugh. Yeah. He kept saying, who's this black man asking me a question like that? But me and Bill became friends, and the rest is history. So getting back to John, so when I met John, he's a small man. And, and I'm looking at him, and he did this for a reason. I see the scar on his head. Mm. Now, I've been around. I'm a baby boomer. I know about that scar, but I've never seen that scar. He decided some years ago that he want people to see that scar because, Bloody Sunday. Mm. So when I saw that scar, it just blew me away. Here's a little small man. I played football. This is a very small man, but a very powerful man in stature. So that was my initial relationship with him. C.T. Vivian, the other icon. If Martin Luther King tells you this is the greatest preacher that he has ever heard in his life, I get excited when I say it. So I'm going to say it again. Yeah. If Martin Luther King tells the world, and you know how good he could preach, I have a dream. Stay with me. If he said this is the best preacher in the world, then this is the best preacher in the world. Yeah. And when I got a chance to meet him, I recognize why. Tremendous voice tone again. Hear me out. Small man, a thin man. On the football field, one shot could have broke him up. But it ain't about playing football. It ain't about how big or tall you are. It's all in the heart and all in the brain. CT had no fear. And then I did some research about CT, and y'all know it. When he was on the steps, he was talking to the sheriff, and he kept talking, and the sheriff got so mad he couldn't shut him up. He hit him, knocked him down. Knocked him down on the steps. This was on national TV.
Wow.
And guess what? He didn't run. He got back up and kept on talking.
Yeah.
So you're talking about icons. These are the people who have came through the state of Iowa. And plus, Mr. C.T. Biggin had a workshop that the city of Des Moines and many people had all of his employees go to it. His workshop was a unique situation. He started confronting white people a long time ago, and he had no fear. But typically speaking, especially when he started doing his workshop, a typical white person was not used, stay with me, to a black man talking to them like that. He feared no one but God. And because of that workshop, he said, we're all equal. And because of that workshop, the rest is history. So these two men who knew each other, who worked together, they're gone. But that's why, you gotta remember now, it's in your hands. These men start out in their 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how old you are, but you ain't as old as me. The bottom line is, I'm gonna say it again, because sometimes we forget. When I started my career, I'm 16, 17 years old. I'm in the riots in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
That's when I started my career when Martin Luther King got assassinated. Righteousness does not have an old age on it. Young men fight the wars. Old men start the wars. I'm gonna say it again. Young men fight the wars. Old men make the wars.
Yeah.
So these were young men who had a chance to live a long life and to become icons.
Wayne, Mr. Ford, thank you so much for joining us today. That's exactly what I was trying to convey to my viewers. Everyone tuning in, please check out Wayne Ford. Check out everything he's done for this community. Check out the legacy that he's built, made it possible for people like me to be able to do a platform like this. Mr. Wayne Ford, thank you so much for joining us today. Y'all stay tuned for the Sunday Supper. Oh, boy,
thank you. And don't forget, me and you got some unfinished business. Get ready. He's going to have a big announcement in the future. Thank you very much, young man.
We got something. We about to drop a bomb on him. I can't even let you know. We about to drop a bomb.
I'm taking my medication. Now. I'll be ready.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right, and thank you for coming back with us, Sunday Supper. Before we get into our discussion once again, I just want to have a quick moment of silence for John Lewis and C.T. Vivian, the people that we lost, people that are doing the mirror image things that you're seeing out in the streets right now. That's what that bravery grows into. So we just want to demonstrate that and show respect to that. Just 10 seconds. All right. So let's get into our first question. Just to kick this discussion off, and I kind of segue this lightly because of the role that John Lewis also played in the church, and so I figured this would be the perfect time to kind of discuss some of these things. But overall, before we get specifically into that, and I'll frame this so that it doesn't go wide. Let's do post-slavery. Do you all believe that religion has helped us or held us back in achieving some of the things that could be discerned as freedom or whatever that looks like to you all? I don't want to steer your answers, but do you feel like religion has helped or held us back as a whole? Not just Christianity, not just, but as a whole. It's a heavy question. So take your time.
I'm happy to go first.
Sure.
Okay. So religion itself obviously is man-made, right?
Sure.
Each one comes with its own ideology and its own set of rules, its own way of thinking, right? Let's just take Christianity, since I'm closest to that. There are so many different segments just in Christianity, right? You got Catholic, Lutheran, Baptist, Kojic, AME Zion, and then it continues to just go, right? There's so many different, denominations out there. And we use denominations to really sometimes allow us to be separate, right? Well, if they ain't this or if they ain't that, I don't know how we can come support. And in reality, it simply is, well, even if they are a non-believer in what you are, we are all taught to still love. The bottom line of the whole thing is about love, right? And so for me, I look at church differently.
Okay.
Right? I'm 32. I firmly believe that Jesus was a black man who stood trial for a crime he did not commit and died for us. That's what I believe. But I also believe that he was radical in his approach, that he wasn't inside of the church at the pulpit every Sunday trying to give this eloquent speech every Sunday, but he was in the streets.
Yeah.
He was in the streets. He was pushing up against a government that did not like people that looked like him.
Yeah.
He was up against a government. He was up against rules that were firm and fast and swift to act against him.
Yeah.
And then you can even see it. It was the church folk who did not like Jesus. I'm not lying. Look it up. They called Pharisees and Sadducees. They were the ones who held the scrolls. They had the scripture. They had the old. They knew what it was. But yet when he came, he had to fight more against the church than he did just regular folk. The Bible tells us about how he fed 5,000 people twice, right? And then it tells us about how he healed folk a few times. And there were murmurings about what he was doing to help people from people in the church. And that's my struggle today, is sometimes we're not called to a building. That ain't, at least not for me. I believe in being in the streets with everyday people. Now you do need, because it also says a collective, the corporate side of things, there's power in that. There's power in those numbers.
Let me push back slightly.
Please.
Because I guess that's a specific, even myself, and I'm not going to give up my own personal beliefs, not on there. But you're, and blessings, because you're coming from a Christian standpoint.
I am.
Right? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess my question is more so though, any religion, like Islam, Hebrewism, I mean, whatever it is what has that as a whole benefited us in any way? These belief systems, I guess that'd probably be a better way to frame it. It's Mob with the question. Yes.
Yes, because anytime you have something that is created to help make people better, or to help exude love, or to help show somebody else,
code of some kind.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
Just from that standpoint.
Yeah. Now, obviously, in everything we do, there is good and evil.
Yes.
Right? No matter what religion you're in, that there is, or no religion at all, there is still good and evil, and you know the difference between right and wrong.
Right. Okay.
But I've noticed this shift though. So I'll to answer your question, I go back and I look and I think about religion as a whole. Yes, there's right and wrong. There's, I believe certain things. I think with every religion, there's some type of belief that you have. But for me, I think things have shifted over time, where I hear the stories of my mom when they were in church and it was more community minded, and that shift somewhere, it shifted differently to where we just got comfortable being in the building and we got uncomfortable with stepping outside of the four walls. So for me, that's my push with church is what happened to where my grandma, my great grandma, my mom, they were out in the community. They didn't no matter who you was, rather you was the person on the street corner, whatever. There was this high reverence and respect for church back then. Okay. But as we've shifted, that has changed. And now people will say the things that church folks can be the worst folks because we can be the most critical of individuals. And so for me, I've taken this step back to look at, just as Rob said, Jesus didn't just stay in the four walls. And I have been in churches, and I've been in church my whole life. So my dad's a pastor, so been in it my whole entire life. Yeah. But for me, what I've noticed is that people get comfortable in that same pew Sunday after Sunday, being in the four walls. We've made more issues now of not being in church, but we're not doing anything. We're still staying stuck in this little box. And to me, Jesus calls you, he says you're mission field. That doesn't mean the mission field is way out in another country. Your mission field is your community. And we've stopped thinking like that. So I encourage, for me, I think the church needs to make that shift back to getting back out on the streets, going and praying up and down the streets. I remember my grandma, she up and down the streets, praying for her neighborhood and everything, and going and talking to her neighbors and being a part of that. We've lost that because we think we're so, I don't know what the word is, but we've just stopped doing that. And to me, when I talk about serving, that's not what I was called to do. I was called to minister to people, no matter if we agree or disagree. Whether we believe the same thing or not. I'm going to treat you as a human being because that's the God I serve. So I think we've fallen away from that because we've gotten so used to saying, I am this and I am that and I believe this. And no, gays and lesbians can't do this and they can't. That's not how it works. Jesus had no respect of person. He loved everyone. We stopped doing that. And that's for me where I have an issue with the church. The preachers are at the pulpit preaching, but they're not out on the streets preaching out there. That's gone away.
I'm gonna just piggyback on it because he went right into my nose.
Go crazy.
So you highlighted.
He always come with those too.
So you highlighted community, and you talked about the shift. And I want to say the shift was, America is heavily individualism. We say if I went to jail, it's your fault, instead of it being the community's fault. Instead of it being the teacher that didn't reach out in that late night hour, instead of it being the grandma who just didn't have enough energy. Like, I was listening to a great podcast where they were talking about some of the African countries, how, there is no individualism, it's community. And if one baby falls short, the whole community falls short. It's our duty to bring that child back up and put it back at the pinnacle of society. So that's what I would say, is that America as a whole needs to shift. It's not the individual. I did this. I made this money. I got to this top. I did this. I got to the highest level of success. No, you didn't. And you walked on the backs of your teachers, your mothers to get here. So that's what I would say is it's community that we need. We got to shift away from individualism and piggyback onto Jesus. Jesus was hated for loving people where they were at. So I love to share the woman at the well that was caught in adultery, and he talks about, him being filled with grace and meeting her where she was at. He could immediately cast her away, multiple men in her life and so forth. I think that's what Christianity and Catholicism in America needs to be looking at, is grace and where we can meet people where they're at. Where's the Black community? How can we serve them? And I want to talk about the last thing, the abolition movement. And during civil rights, we're all, white Christian people. And I want to call those people to the forefront today and say, where are you guys at? We need you. And this is a moral
that's
thing.
The perfect segue into and I kind of asked this y'all know how I do with my questioning, I guess, and I asked that, so just for the viewers watching, I'm probably the only non-believer Christian at the table. The reason I asked that question, I guess, is segueing into the next question: what role does the church play, just like you said, in the movement, in a time where a lot of people like myself have gotten more into, history of Africa, research, all that. Yeah. So we may essentially believe the same things, maybe just different names, different. We're not gonna get into that, right? But I guess what role does the church play when the diaspora reflects such a diverse? Like, I could talk about brothers in Philly that you talk about the pastor and they're like, well, my imam. You know what I mean? Where Islam is more prominent in that community. So I just, from a unification standpoint, what role does the church specifically?
I'm gonna go ahead.
Yeah, Justin, go ahead.
The most segregated time in America is Sunday from 9 a.m. to noon. My pastor says that all the time. And he says that is because we are still divided as a nation on Sunday. And what we need to realize is what brings us together is our faith, whether it's Islam, whether it's Christianity. There is a moral code that is in there that brings us together, that we can live as man to man, as society. And what the church can do. Yeah. Because I've been seeing it recently, of other churches speaking out negatively about the movement, and they only see their ideology, their political ideology. Okay. What I would say is that they need to do some serious soul searching of who they believe Jesus was, who they believe Muhammad was, and come to these streets and listen to these people's concerns. Because we have people crying out for help, vulnerable people crying out for help. And we're literally able to just go to our homes, turn on the TV and watch all this nonsense and forget that, I've been called by a divinity, a divine thing that lives within me to do more, but you're not. So that's what I'm saying. That's what the church
feel my pushback to that, because a lot of this goes back to a part of this is me trying to put that, because I think that's part of what my thing is, because I think Rob, exactly, both of y'all know. I'll tell you. It's all up. There are times, and I think that's one of the things that one of our viewers reached out and said is, hey, let's not just make this seem like black representation is only coming from the church. Right. There are black Muslims. There are black Vodun priestess. There are within the whole diaspora. So I guess to refine it, with the black church being almost in a position of being on that forefront, what role does it play? And I know that's tough.
No, I got an answer.
Can y'all
it's not tough at all.
Because I think just for my viewers, this is an honest question even for me, because I don't go to church often. Okay. So it's a lot of it is like.
It's not tough at all. And let me tell you why it's not.
Yeah, please.
I keep going back to my mom because we've had these conversations about church and community. There used to be a time that the church doors were never locked. Never locked. If you needed a place to sleep,
like the gym,
you would go into the bench and lay there. If you was the person who was on drugs and you needed it, because it was known as the place where you could get healing. You came into the church. It's no longer viewed as that. Now you go to the door, the door is locked. They look at you at the side of the face when you're asking for help. So we've changed that, and that's our fault. But how do we get back to being that place when you needed something, you would come to the church first? Instead, you run here, here, and here. That, to me, the church should be the place that you come when you need healing, not just for your spirit, but you need help, you need guidance, you need a way.
For the community in general, regardless of what you're.
Regardless of, I ain't got time to take you to a questionnaire and find out what
did you believe happened.
I don't care about that, because I care about you as the person. So that's changed, and it used to be that you could be
community based versus.
It's not that anymore.
Okay.
So what I'm getting ready to say may be a slight bit controversial.
Cool.
Say it.
Crazy.
Amen.
Say it. All right.
The question in itself, I didn't even know if I should ask the question.
Yes. As a preacher.
As
a preacher.
As a preacher.
Yes, as a preacher.
Say it. Please.
I have the utmost respect for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Okay.
I may not agree with every single thing he says, but what I respect about him is that he has order and community in his church.
Okay.
When the fruit of Islam, when the FOI step out, they step out in order. When you see those brothers in lines, whether bow tie or not, they ready. He employs people by giving them their first job of selling bean pies and newspapers to teach them the skill of how to get out there and hustle for your money the right way, right? What happened to that in the church when you could come get a job, the church could help you set up, and then once you were back on your feet, you understood the value that the church brought. Now you only have a few churches talking about mental health.
Okay.
And mental health now is killing us.
That's the main,
It is killing us.
For generations.
Right?
Yeah. That's almost a whole episode.
Yeah.
It is.
The thing is, where we find ourselves right now. Okay, let me back up. I had a conversation with Dr. E. Dewey Smith Jr. Right out in Atlanta. He said that we got folks who the community has never seen outside of Sunday try to show up on a Wednesday and lead a march. Can't happen.
It's not gonna work. It'll never work because it's not authentic. It's not organic. It's not.
But yet we had Dr. King, C.T. Vivian, Laurie, Reverend Joseph Laurie.
Okay.
We had all of these people from the civil rights movement, and half, if not 90% of them, were all reverends. Were all in the church.
And that's the powerful thing that I'm pointing out, Rob.
And
you
now,
hit it on the head.
Now what we have is we got a bunch of folk who are like, wait a minute, I got questions about what we've been preaching all along. And so then when you can't answer the question, they then say, fine, I'll go do my own research. Find out for myself, do my own thing. So then when you show up in this space, when you show up in this space and try to lead a protest, they looking at you like, hey, bro, go back to the pulpit. This ain't your lane.
Because you haven't been talking about that in the first place.
So look, somebody put up on Facebook. They said, "Where's the church?" And I commented, "Big eyes."
Because that's Pause. Let me segue that then. That's perfect, Rob. Because all right, so I guess what I'm leading up to with this is, so when you look at that, right? So even, for instance, like we look at, and this is my whole thing is about unification. How do we get past these lines to make a unified front? So for instance, like you all are on the Christian end of things, like when you mentioned Farrakhan. Now, for instance, like today's episode is sponsored by Maccabees Deli, a Jewish Hebrew establishment. So now how do we, because a lot of the Jewish brothers have been standing on the front line with us, how do we say, all right, Nation of Islam brothers, stand next to our Jewish brothers? What, I guess my next question is,
because it's a humanity issue.
It's a humanity.
It is.
It's like, at the end of the day, we are humans.
Justin, you stealing my thunder. Justin, you stealing my thunder.
I just gotta say
I have to, for those that are watching, they're people like, why is he easing along? There are some people that these things have to be explained slowly to them. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to. You know what I'm saying. You know where I'm going.
George Floyd died because there was a state-sanctioned person that had the authority to snuff out one of his civil liberties of freedom and life itself.
Right. Yep. In the pursuit of happiness.
First, let's acknowledge that. Yep. Once we acknowledge that, nobody stopped and asked, what religion was this man? Nobody stopped and asked, did this man believe in Buddha? Did he practice Islam? Was he a fervent Christian? Was he a Catholic? Nobody stopped to ask that question. We simply saw an 8-minute and 46-second video where a man's soul left his body, and we watched it happen on tape.
He cried for his mama.
And we did not stop and ask, what was your religion? No. We got out there and we decided that now was the time to take back what was stolen from us. Okay. And so if we begin, no matter what your religion is, right? Because Akeo and I have been side by side. When the whole thing went down, downtown, Justin and a lot of other brothers, we were side by side. We wasn't asking, are you Christian? Are you Muslim? Are you gay? Are you a lesbian? We wasn't asking that. Right. What we were asking is, can you come help figure this situation out?
Humanity. We are human beings. All of us first. That is the first thing we are. So how can we all stand side by side? Because we're looking at each other as human beings. I tell people, if this is wrong, if you just look at this, just forget everything else.
Whether you Democrat or Republican,
I don't care. If it's wrong, you should be out there with me.
Yeah.
You should be supporting the cause because it's wrong, not because of who I am, who I'm affiliated with, what my label is. Right. Take these labels off that we carry, and we are human beings first. If we started operating in that way, we would see so many different things change. But we're too busy holding on to the titles and the labels in which we carry, and that's why things aren't getting done.
Something that's in the Quran and in the Bible talks about the breath of life is from God. That's in both. It's also in a lot of other religion books as well, right? And if you just simply look at the breath of someone being a being that is being able to operate within them, you won't snuff out that breath because it was never yours to take in the first place.
Let me push back to y'all slightly. Just
push back, bro.
Devil's advocate a little bit. Because one of the main things, and this is actually a conversation I had with a friend of mine in Philly, where he's noticed where it's like there's even within the movement, there's Nation of Islam, which gets, you know what I'm saying? I'll get to that later. There's Nation of Islam, there's the Christianity movement, but I guess my question is, what responsibility do black Christians in this movement, being that black Christianity, the black church, is often viewed as the voice. It's the first stop shop for CNN is going to stop at this church first. They're not going to stop at the local mosque. They're not going to stop to see the brothers on the corner. I'm not saying you should, but like, you know what I mean? Like, no, because they be being wild on the corner, man. And let's call it what it is. But anyway,
but still, shout out to them.
Shout out to them, though, still, because not all of them. So that's my point. It's like, what role does the church play in that? Should we see more pastors saying, hey, don't talk to me, talk to the imam, or don't talk to me, talk to the shaman, don't talk to me, talk to... What does that look like to you guys?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a point of direct organization so they can share. We go back to building those connections in the community again, and then from there they can divert out like, well, yeah, this is a nice young man I know, or here's a business owner I know.
Yeah.
And then, shoot, we can host the town hall here. Just like building that community. And I think we're doing that. I think we're getting around. So I know a lot of younger pastors around in their 30s that are coming up and they're trying to build that community base as well. So
I just want to say this. One of my jobs is to go around the state of Iowa and part of the country to bring faith leaders together, black faith leaders, no matter what your religion is, to bring, because we all believe in one common thing, that there is
a higher
power, a supreme being that controls the greatest architect of the world, right?
Ooh, let me push back on that, Rob.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm an atheist.
Okay.
I don't look. It's this 20% of us out here. I don't want to hear about Jesus. I don't want to hear about Moses. I don't want to hear about the great snake lizard that runs us from the spaceship. I don't believe in nothing, but I do believe that Black Lives Matter. But when I show up to the rally, y'all are preaching, and I got to hear a whole Jesus spiel. What happens? Like, you see what I'm getting at?
I see exactly where you're going.
Okay. I'm just throwing these things in the air as like open, you know what I mean?
But this is what you're gonna get when you
right. That's yes.
Right. Because, because
but I think that's what my question is. Is that right though?
I would be shoving that someone down someone's throat. If the pastor comes to pray, that's great. That's the pastor's role.
Then the imam maybe has a role to come play too.
So there might be different roles that people
maybe
have.
It's just a matter of creating more
at Union Park. We did this at Union Park.
So we had a young girl pray, and she said, "I'm going to pray to Jesus, but
however,
let's not exclude anybody else's religions and what you pray to." So you
I invite you.
Yep, reflect how you do.
I invite you. She was inclusive in this thing, right?
Yeah.
Here's my thing, and I always tell my team this too, is when Will, Caleb, Danny, Megan, Shekinah, when all of us are going out, our job isn't to push Jesus down anybody's throat.
There you go.
Our job is to meet the need.
Yep.
And the church, and where we found out, is that some folks were pushing an agenda and not trying to meet the need.
And not just meet the need, but build the relationship.
Yes.
See, that's what we stopped doing. We have gotten to a point. I tell people, when I meet you, I just want to know you.
Yes.
I don't need. Now, if Jesus comes up, wonderful. But I'm not going to push Jesus down your throat, because I just want to build the relationship and meet the need. That's where I'm at.
And you hungry? You hungry? You hungry?
Yeah.
Get a taco. Let's go get a pizza.
Right.
Let me feed you first.
Yeah.
Let's have this conversation first, right? We've missed this. We've gotten, you know, and no shade to them, but we've gotten to this mega church idea where it's like, oh man, you know, we could do all of these great things and talk to all of these people, and it's like cool. But my very first question is, with all of the money, with all of the things, why don't black people own more hospitals?
Well, Rob, that's a deep question. I didn't even want to. You know what? Now that you opened that Pandora's box, since you opened it, y'all see, I ain't the one that opened it. So let me ask y'all that question because that's actually in private conversations I have with people. When you look at the black church, that's actually one of the few places that functions financially in our community. What role does the black church play in supporting black business and the black economy, the black infrastructure, being that it has been the most stable? Like what role, and this isn't, I don't want people to think that I'm charging you. I'm literally asking these questions like, how do we do this? Like what happens? Okay.
Promotion. I'm gonna say it again. Promotion. There are bodies that come to this church, and black businesses should have a first stab and a first go at whatever you do, right? DeWan and I work together on a whole bunch of stuff. If there's food that we trying to get, we look for somebody within this space. If we can't find somebody in this space that can meet what we need to be met, then we build on other relationships.
Gotcha.
Right? The black church has a responsibility to promote other businesses in this space.
Just outright. Okay.
It's really that simple, right? Everybody got an announcement time. Even though in my church of Second Baptist, I be trying to get rid of the announcements sometimes and just put them on, you know, just send them to
social media,
just send them to people, right?
Something, yeah.
But you still have, you know, for some folk, that old guard is necessary. That's how you do it. But we gotta promote businesses. We should know if there's a black attorney at your church, we should know that. If there's a black builder at your church, we should know that.
every church, and I think that's a great way to because I'm gonna ask another question that kind of shifts gears. Every black church should have a registry of the black businesses functioning in that church, so that y'all can see what's going on. We can see where to purchase, and not just the churches, your mosque, wherever you pray or worship at, whatever you do. If you in the closet, I don't care what you do, put it up. Let us. If you gotta do it, whatever. Let me ask y'all another question, kind of on the same subject, but shifting gears slightly, because we know election season is coming up. And for those that don't know, this is gonna be the last episode before we take a break, before we make some huge announcements for September. Huge announcements for September. But what role does the church play? And we know, obviously, what role the church plays in politics. But right now, especially with our people.
That's my job.
Rob, what role does the church play right now? Should the church be picking our candidates? Should the church be...
We'll let Rob go last on this one.
Rob go last on this one.
Let you bring it home.
Yeah, we'll let Rob bring it home.
We're gonna lay
we might got to put him out of the studio, depending on how some of y'all respond.
I personally think for me, and this is probably just my years of my dad being a pastor, he's real strict in that area.
Okay.
You know, you're not coming in my church. You're not no one. I don't care what your label is, just not doing it because, and I believe in this, make informed decisions. Find out some things for yourself. I don't know how much of a role the church should play, but I know in history you might have people that have come into the church and give their spiel and do all of that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. I have nothing against any churches that do it. I personally don't feel like it's the place where I don't think you should mix the two.
Okay.
That's just my personal opinion is don't mix the two. Let it be what it is.
Pulpit in any capacity, just keep that separate.
I think you should keep it separate.
Okay.
You know, now if you're doing something, you know, now if the church is partnering maybe with someone in the community that is doing something that is bringing candidates in, fair.
Gotcha.
Do that. But I'm just saying, I just don't think that mix between church and politics. That's just my personal opinion on that.
Right. Okay. So if we're speaking specifically about black churches, I like what you're saying as well. Historically, black churches have shown up to help people get registered to vote, to get them to the polls, and to protect their rights. So more than ever, I want the church to be operating in that now.
From mobilization.
From mobilization, getting people registered, making sure they're registered. Hey, Ms. Parker, do you have a right to the poll? We need that. In the last 5 years, we've seen an onslaught on voting rights. So we've seen polling stations removed, closed down. We've seen lines longer in the black community. They've made it difficult to vote. So that is a complete attack on our rights as African Americans, because it's not affecting the suburbs areas. They're affecting urban communities. People are sitting in line for 2 hours. So what I want the church to do is get back to that old guard calling of getting the church registered to vote, getting them to the polls, and then showing up in halls of power to make sure that we can overturn these unjust laws that are being passed, making sure that we have polling stations where my mother is not waiting for 2 hours and getting discouraged. I should be able to get in and get out just as my best friends and white friends out in West Des Moines and Waukee. I should not have a delay on my right, my God-given right, to vote. So that's what I would say. Now I'm gonna give it over to my brother Robert.
The church should not pick the candidate, but the church should have say-so in policy.
Okay.
I don't think
so. The church almost works like a lobbying group, almost in a sense.
I don't think we should take our personal theology and try and push something on a candidate unless it's good public policy.
Okay.
So I want to be clear on that.
Yeah.
I do believe that because the church is the place where you will find the most African Americans, the most black folks on a Sunday morning, just traditionally down the line.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, y'all, that it was the black church that got us the right to vote. And if they were not involved in politics, we would have not had the right to vote.
Right.
Politics is in everything you do.
Yep.
From you having clean air, from your environment, from redlining and zoning in your communities, banks and loans, more so education. Policy goes hand in hand, and politics is in everything. So people who are coming to the pews, if there's a food desert in a neighborhood, but there's a church, the church has the people and the power to push the politicians so that they can create food opportunities in that neighborhood. And that's where I believe the church should be.
Yep.
I do believe that candidates should be allowed, Republican or Democrat, to come into the church and say who they are, because it's a place of trust. It's a place where I go because I know I'm safe. I don't trust these commercials because they're made in a way. I don't trust all of this stuff that I may be reading. But if I come to a place where I feel safe and where I know, then I can gather my own information. And if you don't come meet me where we are, then I have a problem with that. If you don't come to us and come get us, that's why I struggle. But the church should definitely have a say-so in how policy flows in this country.
Perfect. Let me ask you all one last question. We don't have a lot of time left, but I've been kind of playing like the slow, like the snowballing devil's advocate. All the questions I've asked you all today about the role that the black church play in our movement and all that. Just a really quick question for the last 10 minutes, and this is a whole episode's worth. Does the same thing apply to white churches? What does everything that, because just like Justin said, you know, Sundays are the most segregated times in America. Does the responsibilities and roles of using and utilizing your platform as a pulpit, as an organization, do those things fall on white Christians and white churches as well at the same clip as us? Or is there more or less? Like, I guess it's open. I'll leave it open like that on purpose. What do you guys think?
So
Justin,
I'll chime in. I've been able to go to a church, Pastor Hurst, who our sister church is Lutheran Church of Hope, and those two lead pastors, Mike Householder and Michael Hurst, they have a very strong relationship, a strong bond. And I've heard it said that, you know, Michael Householder, he said, I will Pastor, in this movement for Black Lives Matter, I will be your Aaron to your Moses. So you tell me where I can best help, and I'll be there for you.
They're in Des Moines?
Yep. So Lutherans in Des Moines, which our churches are merging.
Okay.
So
let me piggyback another question on this, and I'll let you finish. I guess I'll just make it specific. In Des Moines, since everything that we've seen, have the white churches, non-black churches, non-black religious sects and groups, have they done enough to stand with?
I know of one, like I said, Hope.
Okay.
We are actively doing
Hope.
Lutheran Church Hope. They're actively doing racial bias training and reconciliation courses. And from that, they've been to some summer marches and they've spoken out in the importance of supporting Black lives.
Okay.
So what I would say is that, yes, they need to be in this arena, but this isn't the arena for them to lead. This is the arena for them to follow behind a Black pastor or a Black leader that they can get behind and channel their resources and congregation to get
Into
brought up
that
in
voice.
training
Okay.
and point and help point direction, policy, and law changes. Because like I say it all the time, Rob, we are 5% of the population.
Yeah.
So we can mobilize and there'll be power, but in any civil rights movement, there's always been some population of white people, and that's usually Catholics, Christians coming and helping bolster their resources.
And the Jewish.
And Jewish community, absolutely.
Absolutely. Shouts
To amplify
Maccabees,
Black voices,
yeah.
not them being the voice, but amplifying our voices so we can get the change we need.
Okay.
You cannot stand up in your all-white congregation and not speak about social justice and Black issues. You have a responsibility, according to the same Bible that I read and the faith that we all subscribe to speak and tell the truth.
Okay.
Period.
Simple as that.
And that's where I'm at. That's to
Yeah.
me, that's the role and the responsibility of the white pastors in their churches to bring these issues to light and have those conversations. Because I have some experiences where I know those conversations aren't happening because they're afraid to have those conversations, but they're needed in order for change to take place. And it goes back to, if we reading the same Bible and we serving supposedly the same God,
Then we should be on the same
we
page.
should be on the same page.
Yeah.
You should be able to speak up for what's going on. You should not be afraid to come talk to any other pastors within the community to say, what can I do? If you don't know what to do, ask. Don't try to do something on your own. And I think that's what's missing. And I think the white pastors have been extremely quiet at this point in time.
And I would also interject.
Minus a few.
There's a few that are there,
few.
but for what I've seen.
But we're still lacking.
Right.
You because from a lot of what we've seen is some of the stuff because this is a everybody versus injustice.
Yep.
This is a everybody versus wrong.
Yep.
And from some of the stuff I've seen on the wrong side have been people who are members of large white congregations. And I'm like, how, bruh?
How are we studying the same
How?
thing and reaching that? Yeah.
Like, how are y'all pushing this message? This has to be discussed. It has to be talked about, and we are no longer in the place where white silence is accepted.
No.
Let me just say this to anybody that's watching. If you're wondering, like, how can I get my church on the right side? Reach out. I mean,
Interfaith Alliance.
One of the few of us will
way.
literally come and, like, you reach out to even if it's as simple, send a message to the show. I'll connect you with resources so we can make your church or make your congregation or make the people around you understand. And that's just the same with this whole. The whole premise of me starting this show is for conversations like that. Go ahead.
I want to say that, our humanity is not, because I want to say this, because churches like to twist it to make it a political issue. And this, my humanity as a Black man is not a political issue.
Yeah.
Like,
it's everyone versus wrong.
Right.
Yes.
It's a moral issue.
Right versus wrong. This has nothing to do with Democrats are trying to run the house. Like, no. When my brother gets pulled over and there's a gun in his face, politics is all outside of the picture.
And you know what, Justin?
Him being pulled over as a Black male.
Justin, that's exactly why I asked the question about with the politicians, because I know that there are Republican. We can say it. There are Republican churches and Democratic churches. Like we can see this clear as day. And that's a part of what. And I invite viewers, if you have ideas, this is an open discussion. This is just us sharing our pure thoughts and concerns and will for the community. We are just about out of time. So I do want to thank you all for tapping in with us. This first 7 episodes has gone by. It's like 7, we're complete. See? They done had all these Christians, they done converted me. See? Shouts to Maccabees Deli again for being our week 7 sponsor. We've got some incredible announcements for y'all for September to really make sure that the voice and that this continues with some of the conversations that we've had with these people. I just want to thank y'all for tapping in. This has been the Sunday Supper in Iowa. Y'all just keep fighting. I know it seems uphill. It's our first time doing a lot of things that we're doing here, but know that people are here that got your back. There are entities here growing, and stay focused. Sunday Supper, I want y'all to stay tuned. We'll be back with y'all in probably about a month. But I love y'all, and we'll be back soon. Thank you.
Obviously, the anger, the hostility, the bitterness,
Look into the darkness, it looks back. Best high in the hood since cook cracks, and that's what I'm good at.
took a spell. I hurt my pride. I had to take a long, long look at myself in the eye. It's been a bad year, and I believe I paid some dues. Oh, but it's been a good year for the blues. Hold on, hold on for dear life. I'm trying, baby, stay strong when the been a good year for the blues.